Okay. Hello. Welcome to live tutorial. It's weird. Yesterday, I didn't expect the live tutorial thing to go so well. I kind of enjoyed it. And, from what I can tell, there were a lot of viewers who also enjoyed it. So it kind of made me think, should I keep doing this? I think it would be fun. And I think it would be nice that my viewers and other artists would also kind of benefit from maybe knowing about things that I do and how I do it. If you haven't seen my stream yesterday, I do have it uploaded on YouTube now. And so far, and listen, I went the extra mile of doing, downloading, what is it? Claim free music from the YouTube website. And that's kind of what you're going to listen to the background now. It's just going to be like ambient, very, 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 very calm, soothing music, which is makes me feel a little bit like Bob Ross a little bit. It's just going to make it a nice, happy time and whatnot. Not that I'm comparing myself to Bob Ross. Believe me, I can't paint worth a damn. But I do like showing people stuff and what I can do. Give me a second now. Okay, so the chat's working. Just wanted to put that there just as a test. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to teach... I should put teach in quotations. I'm just going to show you the kind of methods that I take for coloring and shading. And there's a couple ways to go about it that I tend to enjoy, and it goes a lot with the brushes that I used yesterday. So let me just do like a quick rundown of the brushes that I use again. And what I'm gonna use right now is I'm gonna use a Sumi dry brush, just to do just kind of like a quick underdrawing. I'm gonna just draw like a quick character right now. Let's. A character that, like, probably gives off a lot of cartoony vibes. And, this is Wily. So, just give me a few moments as I set up a drawing to clean up and color. Now, yesterday might have been a fluke. Probably not a lot of people are going to be interested in this stream as much as they were yesterday. Oh, Lizzie Life, thanks for the follow. But I figured, why not? Let's try again. Let's keep going on with this kind of concept. And there, simple Wily, and lighten him up. And now I'm going to go again with Bob's Big Belly, and I'm going to start cleaning. Now I need to get a little closer, and I didn't make a new layer. There we go. Now that's a new layer.
Another one? Oh, this is gonna be fun!
Hey! How's it going, Andy? Thanks so much for the follow, my friend. So, if you'll bear with me, this is a very, very simple character to kind of like to work from. Gonna give him some nice shapes, some nice circular, round shapes that'll kind of be good to work with. This is not a perfect circle. This is definitely not a perfect circle. But this is good enough. So for the time being, this is the character that I have. Well, we'll see what I do in terms of color, because this guy is mainly just like whites and grays, which, you know what, that's fine. Let's just start off with that. So make a new layer underneath that. So when I have a cleaned up drawing, I usually just work with the fill tool. If you want to see the settings that I have for this, I usually have the fill tool set to refer to all layers, because what that does is it basically means that every layer on your page is going to be referred to when you're on another layer. So let me just show you what that does. So I have the fill tool right now, and the fill tool is just kind of automatically set to refer only to editing layer. That means anything on that layer is going to be just what it fills. So if I were to just fill up anything, it would just fill up the entire screen. But if I was in the same layer and I started to just make a shape around that and then go to the fill tool and fill that, it would just fill that shape. Now, when I set it to refer to other layers, now it will just color whatever it sees. So if you just have another layer with just the cleanup work, and you're filling up the lines of that work, and it's in another layer, it's only going to refer to these lines. So right now it's like I'm coloring in these lines, but when I turn off that layer, now that I click on it, it's just going to refer to everything, like in that layer. So because there's no lines blocking that up. But right now it's like, you know, I got the wrong colors. I just wanted to show that so it's a little bit more clear. Wiley is a very, he's like a classic character. He's very wacky looking, and he's very lizard-like. Almost, I always draw lizards like this. Like cartoony lizards, not like real lizards. But I mean, you know, this is like a cartoon character of mine that I've just kind of like played around with. This suddenly has gone to the wrong brush for some reason, and I don't know why. I'm just like cleaning up some lines here because I've noticed there's some loose lines just kind of like showing up, and just gonna add some little details, just like kind of show that he has some dimension. And yeah, so regular color, just kind of like, maybe I should make it a little bit more, no, that's too dark. There, that's a little bit more like it. And his clothing is darker. It's like a darker gray. So we have like this bluish-white character with very dark colors for his clothing. So if you'll notice, when I'm using the fill tool to color in, I'm blocking out colors. This basically just means that I am putting in the base colors underneath the initial drawing. So everything within these lines are just the base colors. And they could be anything. It's like I usually just have these colors set to kind of like the basic color of the character's scheme. And because if there was no shading, no other kind of blending to this character, and it was just a flat cell drawing, it would look like this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this. I'm going to put this in another folder, and I'm going to copy this folder, move them over, and just kind of like drag them over. You know how I do this? I mean, if you want to know how to do that, to make like a quick copy of something, I have Control and Alt. I'm on a PC, obviously. So if I hold down Control and Alt, and I click on a certain spot of the layer, it will immediately make a duplicate of that drawing. And I can just move that around, and it will also make it a new layer. It will make it a duplicate, but also kind of like make a new... You know what? Maybe my cursor should show up. Here we go. Capture cursor. There, can you see my cursor now, or no? It doesn't look like it. Oh wait, now you can. See, okay, there's my cursor now. I don't know why it wasn't showing up earlier. But if you'll notice, here in the layers, I've basically made another duplicate, and I can just keep going as soon as I like. If I release Control and Alt and then press it again, it'll like keep letting me do it. So I'm already creating too many Wileys, so let's just stop that. So now that we have this duplicate drawing, I'm going to go with the basics of how I do cell shading. Now, cell shading it's a term that's used for basic, just straight one color to another color. There's no blending, it's just shading, it's just, it's just like creating a new kind of line work to the drawing. So with this, and usually how I've done this is I just kind of like, because this is just one color, I will select, and I need to use the auto select, which is the magic wand tool in other terms, but it's called the auto select. It basically will select a certain color. You'll notice that it's kind of, what they say called the ants, that just kind of like show the selection around this particular color. So I've selected just this color. And now what I am going to do here is I'm going to select a new layer, and then I'm going to select this button right here, which is called Clip to Layer Below. And when you select that, what it does is everything below this layer is what is going to be painted over. So let me deselect this for a minute and show you what that means. So now that I have a brush, and this layer is now clipping to below this layer, so what happens is like now I'm coloring over this drawing, but as I keep going, you notice it just kind of stops. That's because wherever there's color on the layer below, it will show up in the layer above it because it's basically clipped below. I think this is also called matte. In another term, it's called like a matte layer. But this is Clip Studio. They call it clipping. So you see, if I turn it off, it won't show up because it's all of the stuff that's in this layer is now gone. So anything that shows up in the layer above it won't show up either. So there you go. And also, it won't obstruct anything underneath, so I can erase it, and it won't take away any color underneath. But the problem is that you will still go to another color. So if you rather work this way and just keep it clipped to the layer below it, you know, you'll see that it's still going to everything. Every color is going to be messed with. Every color. And we don't really want that. We want just one color selected. So I'm going to once again use the magic tool and just kind of select that color. Still going into this clipped layer and selecting another shade of the color. And now I can do whatever I wish to this color that's selected and just give it like this new shade. And this is like a basic shadow. This is the basic cell shading method. I usually just have things directed in one way. Lighting is another thing to just kind of think about, and that probably will need some sort of explaining in its own sort of video if you don't really know much about lighting. But for the time being, I think I'm going to keep it simple and just kind of like show you this method of shading. So now that we have the base cell shading of this drawing, now we can deselect it and we can, if we need to fine-tune anything, like if there's a color missing, we can just kind of like draw over that and just kind of like, you know, something that usually happens when I use the fill tool is that, let's see if it showed up anywhere. Like around probably like these areas here, if you notice right here, those will usually not get filled up. Here, let me show you what I mean. So let me turn this off and just color this again with the darkest color that I can, so I can show you. See, you notice how there's sort of like these gaps are not being filled up. So here's the thing. I'm not sure how to fix this problem. There's some like area scaling where it's a little bit better, but you'll also notice like here, like you'll notice these spots, it's kind of bleeding out now. That's a big problem. However, you know, there's no really perfect way to work with this. It's always going to kind of be, it's always kind of going to be very non-precise. So, I mean, I could still area scale as much as possible, but it's still going to have like an issue. How I bypass that is like I just go back into my my usual pen tool, and I just kind of like fill those up myself. It's a little bit of an extra step, but overall it helps out tremendously if you just do that manually. I know that there's a lot of people who just they'll just color it entirely themselves, and that's a bit of a lengthy process for myself, so I just go ahead and fill it up, and then just kind of, you know, take the brush tool and go over whatever I need. It's not that big of a deal. It actually is less of a step than the other kind of methods to do it. There are also, what's it called? There's another painting method, and let me see if I can do that right now. I'm not sure. So now that we have this colored, there is a paint unfilled areas tool, where if you go over these spots, it will fill it up. Like, you'll see like this highlight, it'll just kind of fill in whatever little areas need to be. The only reason why I don't use this is because sometimes if it's too close to another spot, I kind of like, yeah, it will fill up that tiny little spot that doesn't need to be colored. So I just let that go, and I just do it myself. But this is like a nice tool to kind of like fill in any like little gaps, especially if you're far and away from the drawing, and just kind of do that. It's really honestly a neat trick, and I mean, if folks like doing that, they should use that, because it's a neat way to fill in some gaps. But again, it's gonna do this. It's very unfortunate that it's not perfect. It will kind of like, you know, kind of mess up some edges there. I think there is some color margin properties that you can do to keep this from happening. I haven't played around with it that much, but it's, you know, honestly, I just do it however. Like see right here, look at this little white block right here. That little white block. So I am I'm just gonna like fill that up myself. You know? It's just like, it's simple as that. When you zoom out, you probably won't notice it as that much. If you want to perfect it, if you want to be like a perfectionist or something, and just kind of do that, I mean, by all means, go ahead. I, however, sometimes don't personally go with those like little details that much, and it's not really that big of a problem to me. Is this music even playing? I guess it is. It's not very loud, is it? But it's very soothing, I guess. So again, let's go into some other colors and just kind of like work in some different colors. And I used to just keep colors on the same layer, especially when I cell shade, because you know, it's sometimes I will miss out going to certain layers. You'll notice that I don't really name my layers, and that might be a problem, but at the same time, it's like, it's another step to take I don't really. I'm very lizard brain when it comes to this sort of stuff. I just kind of like do, whatever. I have to basically make sure that I keep myself in check with certain stuff. So let's go to another color and color that in. And let's color that in. I've actually been very into very ambiance-like music because of the Outer Wilds game that Vinny has been playing lately. And there's one song that keeps playing that, as calm and as soothing as it is, it gives me a lot of anxiety because I know what's coming. But it's a neat soundtrack, and I really do like it. But yeah, this kind of music is always... I always feel like it's calming to listen to, and it's very different from what I'm usually listening to. And also, it helps keep those claims in check when it comes to music and uploading videos like this when you have a playlist going. So, okay, now that we have Wily kind of cell shaded here, this is the end result of a cell shaded character. It's not perfect. There's things that I could probably fix with it. So maybe that shadow won't be so pronounced. I can still go in and kind of fix it. And since it's on its own layer, it's not really messing with anything underneath. Yeah, there you go. That's cell shading. And we'll just label this right now. And let me just set this as base. Actually, should probably give it its own layer, because this is gonna... So here's base. These are the base colors. This is cell shading. And now what I'm going to do next is I'm going to... Let's make another one. I can erase cell shade. So what I also want to show you is kind of like highlights and reflective shadows. Not reflective shadows, I like reflective light. Now, reflective light basically is the color that it's the lighter version of a highlight that goes to the shadow. So if you look at a shadow and look at anything, look at like your hand right now, and look at the shadow or how the shadow works on your hand. So you'll notice that there is a highlight to where the light source is coming from, but there's always a secondary light source that kind of bounces off of something else.
Another one?
And
this is gonna be fun!
And that light basically bounces from whatever is in the shadow area of the where the opposite end of where the light comes from. Now you have the shadow, and the light kind of bounces off onto the shadow.
Another one? Oh, this is gonna be fun!
I don't know if I'm explaining this very well because I'm looking at my own hand right now. Let me explain visually because I'm so much better. I'm so much better at this when I show stuff off visually. That's why I kind of wanted to do this. Okay, so I am just basically have this base color, right? So now I have... So I'm going to make another layer, and I'm going to have this clip down onto this. And I'm going to have now this shadow. This is basically the shadow layer. So this is where the shade comes in, and then we have like a highlight, which could basically just be any brighter color. It's like here is the lighter highlight. This is basically whatever light source is coming in through here, that is the exact light source that is just bouncing off of this very simplistic shape. So underneath that, underneath this shadow, we need to come up with a slightly lighter light source, and this could be this could range to anything. And this becomes what we call the reflective light. And you'll notice that it's looks a little weird right here, but this is basically just a simplistic example of what reflective light is. And just dumbed down in the most mundane term that I can is that it is a slightly less darker color than the shadow that you're using. So let's like kind of like put this down in gradient form. So we have oops, did that not work? Give me a second here. Oh, that's right. It didn't work that way because I'm still in that clipped layer. So here we have this gradient, like bare bones gradient, just black to white. In the middle is gray, and the right is white, and on the left is black. So here in this spot is where the light source is coming from. And it just sort of blends all the way around until we get to the end where it's just dark as possible. This is the shadow. But, so now that we take, I'm going to use the eyedropper tool, and I'm going to take this color, and I'm now going to take the gradient over to here, where we now have a slightly gray spot at the end of the shadow. This basically makes it kind of gives it a little bit more depth. It, depending on how the surrounding colors work, it could range from any number of colors. Usually, and this is what I've learned in color theory, if you look at like a distant mountain and your basic instinct is to think the color that you're seeing is the darker color of what the light actually is. So if you're looking at a mountain and it's green, you're going to immediately think that the shadow is going to be like a darker green. But your eye is kind of tricking you on that. Your eye and your mind are tricking you on that. It's actually a little bit more purple, but you don't really see that immediately because you're already just thinking about the color green. And I'm going into a lot of color theory stuff right now, but it's like, and this could just be a completely entirely different subject that I could discuss. But for the most part, what you should do is you just should kind of look at a photograph and just kind of observe, or even take the eyedropper tool on a photo and just kind of drop it, see where it goes onto the color wheel. And more often than not, it will be the color that you do not think of the most. And let me just kind of like, let me see if I could do like a quick little thing here. So, see, now that we have these green hills and we have like these shadows here, this probably works better with blending, but if we just slightly move that color over and we take this color from the color wheel just like into this color, it kind of gives it a little bit more of an edge in terms of, you know, how color works. And you could probably even go like even further and just, you know, make it purple. It's, I mean, this is experimental shit. I really, honestly, again, this is like all color theory that it's like I haven't thought about in years, but it's just one of those things that just kind of like comes to mind every once in a while. But let's forget about this for a minute. I just wanted to show you what reflective light really is. This is, and to the dumbest down terms I can put it, is just a lighter color of the shadow that you're using. So what we're going to do with Wiley here now is I'm going to do a new clip layer. So this will clip to the drawings underneath. I think it clips to both. Yeah, it does. It just clips to both. But we're going to take this color and just kind of mess with it a little bit, make it a little bit lighter, not too much. That's not enough. Sometimes it just needs a little playing around. So, see there? So now that we have this reflective layer, and again, I probably should select the spots that I'm going for. I am basically just taking a very subtle but effective method of reflective colors, reflective light. And it's not amazing. It's not like really amazing, but it gives it a little bit more. You know, we could probably see it better in darker colors. So now let's try it for this. For the eyes. No, not. No, still not light enough. There we go. There we go. A little bit more of a reflective light there. And that kind of gives it some, gives it a little bit more, something a little bit more special. So I'm using the eyedropper tool, just selecting the color of the dark shadow, and just kind of ever so slightly making a lighter color, and then making highlights to just kind of like bring in a little bit more of an appealing highlight. And yep, that's really all there is. And you can even do a highlight over this. Like if you do like a lighter color and you do highlights to the edge of where the light's coming from, you can also do highlights for more light. And It's not fantastic. Maybe it's like maybe it goes a little overboard, but it makes things look a little bit more detailed. Gives it a little bit more kind of a flavor. And here, I don't know why I'm calling it flavor.
Yeah, just give it a little bit more flavor. Just dab all that sauce right on top of that. Just put that color sauce right on top.
I apologize. But, yeah, there you go. This is reflective light. I'm pressing the wrong buttons here. Hang on. All right. So that's just the basic. This in its simplest forms is just how shading goes. But again, this is like the simplest way to go about it. Simple. And now let's go. Let's take this even further. Let me save this. Let's take this a little bit further.
Another one? Oh, this is gonna be fun!
Luigi Versus, thank you so much for the follow. Again, if you followed and you show up and I haven't said hi or anything, please forgive me. I'm in the middle of talking sometimes and I can't catch everything. So let's take another Wily. And so now that we've done cell shading, I kind of wanted to do a little bit more of a blended sort of shading. Now, this is a completely different method on how I shade, and I don't usually do this on very cartoony drawings like this, but I have. Don't get me wrong, I have. But this is a little bit more detailed. It takes a little bit more practice. And again, the brushes that I use are they're very hard to find, but I'm going to use the Norisand brushes again. And most of this is with the brush dry and the Airsoft whatchamacallit, airbrush tools. Alright, so I'm going to make a new layer, have that clip down. I'm going to select the color that I want to color. And my first brush that I'm going to use is the Dry Brush S. This is a little bit of a harder brush. There's also brush W, which is not as hard. I use this kind of brush a lot in Photoshop, and it's nice because the lighter that you use the pressure, the lighter the color blends. And the harder that you use it, and the more you use it on top of it, it gets darker. So that's not the color I want, so let's, what was the color that I used for this? Okay, this, just select this color. So I'm basically going around, I'm basically doing, oops, I am not on the right layer. Alright, okay, there we go. So what I'm basically doing is I'm basically just kind of applying the same method that I use with cell shading, but you'll notice that it kind of makes like a little bit more of a gradient blend. And I could apply this as much as I'd like or as little as I like. I can even kind of erase a little bit and go with the transparency on it and just kind of make it, you know, a little bit more as pronounced as I want or as little pronounced as I want. And I just, these are the this is the basic shading that I basically apply to cell shading. But now that there's a little bit more detail to it, you'll notice that, oops, you'll notice that I could even apply more shading to it, but it still has an edge to it. So I could even go with the soft brush tool and just kind of like apply some more gradient to it so that the shadow blends a little bit more. Isn't that nice?
Isn't that lovely?
Another one?
Naughty M Comics, thank you so much for the follow. So I'm going to apply this to all the colors. And once again, I need to use the right brushes, and I'm still applying the same kind of methods as cell shading, but now I have a little bit more gradient. And it looks like the colors blend a little bit better. So it's like, it's not just a stopped color. It's not just like this color and that color. It's now this smooth sort of gradient color that blends in together. And I'm kind of treating it like I could mold it a little bit, like if I needed to. So if I'm using too much color and I'm going over something too much, I can just kind of like erase it a little bit and go over it a little bit again, and then just kind of dab it, where I can dab the color there to just kind of make it a little bit more of a gradient. And I use the term gradient a lot because it really is. I mean, it's really just kind of like blending one color to the next. But you're not really messing with the color underneath because it's its own layer. So you're really just kind of like, so see, if I can turn off the shade layer on and off as I please. So, and I'm also using the same kind of colors that I used in the cell shading method. Honestly, when it comes down to it, you're not really married to just using this color. I mean, I could basically just go with another color and just kind of like blend it like that. And it's different. It makes it pop a little bit. It makes it a little bit, it gives it a little bit of a change. And also, this is what I'm talking about with reflective light. See, if you had this character against another color, like something that was a little bit more blue or purple or red or something like that, the reflective color could be bounced off of that. So, like, I could even just kind of do this. The reflective color would just kind of be on this shadow a little bit, where it's like it's red now. I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself, but I just wanted to show you, when you use the tool, like tools like a blending sort of brush for this sort of stuff, it makes it look really, really nice. You can come up with some really nice coloring, like, not experiments, but you could really kind of do what you will when it comes to colors and shadows. Let me just finish this one off. And now that we have like a very round shape here, this can be blended a little bit so it kind of gives a little bit more dimension. It's more spherical. And there you go. That is the simplest method that I use for blending shading. And let me title this. So this is just the blended shadows method that I apply. And I could also apply this with now let's do reflected light. So like I showed off before, this method could probably help, or like it could really help the shadows just kind of pop if you apply this method to let's see, where am I going again? So let's so now I'm gonna make a new layer, clip that down. I'm gonna select the color again. And now that we have a reflective layer, I can now apply whatever color I want and make that the highlight. But I'm going to make it something a little bit more, something a little bit brighter, something that something that kind of makes it pop a little bit more. So this reflective light is going to be very subtle, but you're going to really notice a difference because it kind of blends underneath a little bit. And when we get out of that, you notice there's now like a highlight underneath the shadows, which just kind of gives it a little bit more dimension. And we're going to do that with other colors as well. So let's try this. And again, it's like molding. It's like using the brush to just kind of like work with what you got. And just kind of like playing around. Just like being a little bit light with it. Showing that you don't want to do too much or just enough. And give it a nice blend. There you go. See, and that makes things, it makes things look like it's actually it. Like if this was in another area of like if this had a background to it, this could really make you feel like this is within the space that it's drawn in. It kind of helps if you have like colors or an environment in mind, but at the same time, it's like right now, it just gives it enough detail where you can think like, wow, this really feels like now it has like a lot more detail to this, and it really feels like this could be somewhere. So let's now do the eyes, and then I'll probably just finish up on this one. Give it some reflection here on his eyes. Which always, when it comes to cartoony eyes, you're just working with giant spheres. And that's always the funnest thing about those kind of eyes. And it's simple too. And I could probably use the same kind of color on this. So I'm just selecting that and just creating a highlight. And there you go. There you go. And apply as many details as you wish. I would honestly suggest trying to just kind of tone down how much detail you put in, because the simpler that you could make something look, the easier it is to read. Because even if this is like very, very detailed sort of shading, it's still very simplistic, and you know where everything is. You can sense the shapes. You can sense like what is what. You know, maybe if like I had like a more full-bodied piece, that could show you a little bit more about that. But for what this is right now, this looks like a nice solid piece, like a nice solid shape with all of its dimensions and shading and the round parts are round. The tube spots look like tubes. You can tell where a joint kind of like ends, or where where it goes deeper, or kind of like goes towards something. You know, you have to kind of like eye it. You know, it's like you kind of have to know where to put a shadow, and where to put a highlight, and knowing those sort of ideas will make your character kind of like pop. I'm wondering if this is usually my usual method of shading. It's either cell shading or blended. And if I really wanted to take my time on a piece, I would use blended shadows. But I mean, like, I will even color sketches like this. I'll color sketches like this, like this one. Like, I'll cell shade a sketch. It's all about putting it in its different layer. So that's something to kind of keep in mind. What layers, what to put in what layer. So on the top you have the line work. On the bottom you have the base colors, and in the middle you have the shading. And you can add as many layers as you wish. I try to keep things like, you know, if I want the shades to be in one layer, I like to keep them in one layer, and I also do that for the base colors and the lines. But you are not married to any of this sort of method. You could make as many layers and as many colors, as many shading areas that you wish. I am just basically showing you this is my madness. This is how I do it. Look, I don't even name my layers. It's not a good idea. Do not name your layers. I will name them if it's like, say, you know, for a job or something, because someone else will have to work with what I have, and honestly, it's helpful to kind of name layers. But I've worked with files where there is like 50 like to 100 layers, and it's overwhelming seeing all the names of that. But yeah, that is simply just how I do my shading. And heck, if you liked this, please check out my other video where I talked about brushes and all the brushes that I used. I used a lot of the brushes in this video, in this stream. Well, it's going to be a video, so, but in this stream, I used a lot of the brushes that I used the other day when I was talking about brushes. So if you want to get a bit better idea of that, you can watch that either on my Twitch or on the YouTube or wherever you want. Either way, I think I did my part in telling you how shadows work. And there's a lot more to this in terms of like color theory and, you know, everything else. But as you know, as simply as I could put it, this is my usual go-to when it comes to coloring. Base colors, shadow, blends, you know, whatever I want to do. And I'll even color the outlines sometimes. You know what? Let me do that. Let me just show you how I color lines. And that's like another like thing to do. So where is, there we go. We'll use this one. So now that I have that, I'm going to, and now colored lines. So now that the lines are all on this layer, I could basically go above that and make a new layer and also clip that. And what I will do to color the lines, I will make a slightly darker color than the shadow that I've used, and color over whatever is over that line, and just kind of like color it. I'm just kind of eyeing it right now. It's like if I want to be precise, I would go in closer. Like I would zoom into a particular area to see if like I am getting to the right lines, but it's like I'm doing this real quick because I'm probably gonna head out, and I'm very hungry right now, honestly. I'm just kind of coloring in certain lines to kind of give it a little bit more of this is like an edgier kind of method of coloring, where and you could be darker than this. This is kind of highlighted, but again, I'm just taking a darker color and coloring that in, and kind of makes it highlight the edges a bit more. Where, and if colors start,
well, looky what we
if
got
colors
here.
start to blend into one another, it'd be good to kind of like create like a good balance about, oops, wrong color, and that's the wrong color again. And because you'll notice like the line here just kind of like seems to blend with the color of the hat. And it all comes down to figuring out like a nice balance of what color to use. And could definitely change that if you want. I might make it a little bit darker. No, that's too dark. Make it a little bit darker.
Incoming connection.
And I'm really happy that people are following on the basis of these tutorials, and I really do appreciate the support. So now that we have, now that we have outlines colored, and it also kind of like, I even kind of blended it a little bit so it looks like the lines kind of look like they're highlighted where it is lighter and darker where the shadows are. I mean, that's also something that you could do. Yes, when I will upload this as well to YouTube. If folks want to watch this, I'm gonna head out pretty soon. But I really hope everyone enjoyed. Maybe I should sign this. There we go. And yeah. So this is basically, you know, my brief tutorial about how I shade stuff. And man, if you like this, I mean, thank you so much. Give me a follow. Like the video on YouTube when it went up. If you I don't know how many of you are following me already on Twitter, but I am AWD Twit on Twitter. If you want to go over there and just give me, well, first off, give me a follow, but give me suggestions on future live tutorials, because I would love to do more of these. This is really honestly satisfying to me. I love showing off my methods. And if it's helpful to you guys, and if you really like it, I mean, keep that support and spread the word, and I'm sure other people would like to know about it as well. And yeah, I'll keep doing these. As long as I have subjects to talk about, you know, because I have to think about stuff that I would, you know, want to delve deeper into, and just kind of like figure out if there's any like little details that I can think of. I'm even thinking about doing some animation and posing and storyboard tutorials, because on YouTube I am Electronic Heroes. If you look up Andrew Dickman or Electronic Heroes, it'll show up, you know, and give me a subscribe there. But yeah, so yeah, in the future I plan to talk about how I work with storyboards. Maybe I'll talk about how I work with cameras, how I work with layout. What are ways that I use about performance and acting with characters. And also, I was also thinking about this, and I don't know how this is going to work out, but I was also thinking about doing some figure drawing stuff. I may not be able to show that because you will need nude models in order to learn about figure drawing. And I don't think it's probably not going to work well with YouTube and Twitch. They're probably just going to be like, they're probably going to be like, yeah, you can't have like nudity and boobies on our channel. No, you can't do that. I can probably just kind of, I'm thinking actually, like, I will probably just work off of some models away from the main canvas, so that I could just kind of like draw and show you how I work with figures. But for now, I mean, that's a little bit advanced right now. We're gonna do this day by day, and I'm gonna try to do some more later on. I really appreciate... I'm talking way too much. I gotta head out. Thank you so much, everyone, for watching. Again, follow me on all the proper channels, Twitch, YouTube, whatever. Yeah, definitely give me suggestions on my Twitter when you can. So, I see, Andy, you suggested something. I'll read that later. Thank you so much, guys. Take care.